Hey guys, Bradley tuning in, coming at you with another video, and today I want to discuss months of inventory. What is it? How do we calculate it? And why is it such an important number for what's going on in our local Toronto real estate market today? In fact, I think it's going to point us in the direction that prices will continue to go over the next year or two. Before I get started, my name is Bradley. We do videos like this every week to keep you up to date on the latest tips and tricks. Now, if you follow any of my content, you know back when we had that giant crash that happened a few years ago, we were able to time the market, me and my family, and we actually came out with $100,000 after tax dollars, having sold a property right in time for the market to come all the way down. And this is the importance of understanding where we are in the current market cycle, and it'll allow you to make money and seize opportunities. Kids are back to school now, and so in the same method, I'm going to be asking you guys to apply the numbers that I'm going to share with you. I want to share with you some graphs on what exactly is happening for months of inventory here in the GTA, and it's going to be left up to you to decide whether what I'm saying is accurate in the past videos that I've done, or whether what other people are saying who are also very knowledgeable about the market and what they're saying is accurate. This is going to be completely up to you. But before I set the stage for how this conversation came to be in analyzing months of inventory, we need to know what it is. Essentially, months of inventory is the active listings divided by the number of sales in a given period. Having the months of inventory over the last 10 years allows us to see whether there's going to be a shortage of supply, which of course here in Toronto has been an ongoing issue. Now, all of this dispute, all of the social media blow up that's been going on has happened from a 2019 update video I did. Perhaps the title didn't help. I called it "Supply is Massively Down in Toronto." People didn't like that, and they came flying at me with many comments that are very reasonable comments, but I want to share with you why I'm saying there is a shift happening. Maybe we haven't reached the bottom of a supply crisis that we've seen years ago. However, there is a trend that's happening, at least that I'm seeing, but correct me if I'm wrong. What I talked about in that video essentially, and I will tag it here as well, is this idea that listings, the number of listings coming in the market have been declining, the number of sales have been going up, and hence months of inventory seems to be shrinking over the last year. Now it's early on, which is why I like to catch these things. Of course they're going to be disputed because maybe it's not commonplace to discuss them yet, but this is really what I'm fascinated by. Now what I want to show you is the chart that's got me thinking all of these things, and I want you to decide whether what I'm saying is a trend or whether this is just a blip and just a typical market that we've seen over the last year. So check this out. Now, as we're looking at these numbers, we can see back from September 2012, months of inventory was 3.8 all the way down to March 2017, where we had less than a month of inventory, which was just crazy. So that was the trend that we saw happen over 5 years. The question now is whether this is going to happen again. Is this something we're going to experience once again? Now, the backstory to all this is there are a lot of things that have been happening to limit the demand. There haven't been a solution offered for supply. But now many of the factors that have really compressed our demand in the GTA are starting to wear off. And so now we're starting to potentially see a trend happening here. At least I'm seeing a bit of a trend happening. But if we look from July 2017, where it was 3.2 months of inventory, until where we stand today, July 2019. Now I know I'm putting this video out in early September, but these are the figures that we have the latest, and of course we're going to monitor them. But today we stand at 2.1 months of inventory. These are a downward trend that's happening year over year, but there's clearly a movement happening. Now, of course, as you bring stats like this, people say it's not a big deal, there's a blip. And I have some very knowledgeable individuals leaving me comments on various platforms I want to share with you to get the other side of the coin. I got a comment on Reddit which essentially said, what's the large supply shift? Now, if we look from last year, we saw roughly 2.5 months of inventory, and today we're sitting around 2.2, and then he goes on to say that the market appears to be pretty status quo following the downturn in summer 2017. So let's jump and see if these numbers actually line up with what has happened. So in July 2018, he said it was roughly 2.5. Now it was 2.9 months of inventory. Okay, well, we're relatively close. And in July 2019, his claim is it's 2.2 roughly, and we sit at 2.1. So he's not all that far off as far as the figures go. So these are the stats, and I think in many ways, some people are interpreting one thing and another is interpreting another thing. Now the question, and this comes back down to you guys, is whether this is a trend that could potentially be happening. Now it's better to track it now than to wait until everyone catches on and we start to see this speeding up of the market. If you want an opportunity to get in, and this is in fact a trend, the earlier the better. But if it's not a trend, then maybe I'm completely wrong and I'm going to eat my words. But before I leave off here, I also want to show you what's happening across Canada. because as we look across the country, I think it paints a picture for us on how tight the months of inventory are here in the GTA. Now, when we look in Canada, we see on average 4.7 months of inventory, which is indicative of roughly a balanced market. We are substantially below that. And the irony is that 4.7 is actually a lot lower than we actually see in the past. In fact, in the recent history, we've seen an average of 5.3 months of inventory. Now, where that leaves us is the upcoming federal election, and I will be doing a video on what the major issues are that are facing us here in the GTA and really across Canada. And so you want to stay tuned for that video. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. You're going to see one of two things. Either I'm going to be successful and I'm going to have predicted this trend in the months of inventory, or I'm going to eat my words. In either case, hopefully you guys are going to be entertained. So slam that subscribe button and we're going to continue to put out fantastic content. And I'm excited to share. But again, question is to you guys, is this in fact a trend of months of inventory, or am I just completely off my rocker? I'd love to hear from you guys. I'll see you next week with more tips and tricks. Take care and keep it real.